Today, we've got the top 10 counties that shifted the most toward Trump in the 2024 election in terms of the net raw vote totals. Where did the biggest swings in terms of percentage for the D's and for the R's? I also already took a look at the biggest raw vote gains for Harris in each county. So this is not about percentages, it's about the raw net number of votes gained. So I've got the 10 counties highlighted right here, coast to coast. And these 10 are really going to show you how this election was won or lost. Even though these are not the biggest percentages, the net vote shifts here are going to be in population-heavy counties, and the biggest takeaway is going to be that more vote was actually lost for Harris than necessarily gained by Trump. And again, this data was taken from Dave Leip's Atlas of U.S. Presidential Elections. So let's start with number 10. We're going to go into the Southwest. We've got Maricopa County. Now, most people know this county has Phoenix and a majority of the state's population. If you're unfamiliar, it's this large county right here. The population here is over 4.4 billion, and it says 62% of the population lives here. Now, let's take a look at the demographics. Here, the white population is down to just under 60% now. Non-Hispanic is even a little bit lower. The Hispanic population is over 30% now. And if you look at the population growth over the decades, you can see 100 years ago, it was still under 100,000 people. So a huge explosion over the last century. But how does that translate into the election? Well, Trump won this county with 51% of the vote. He lost it in 2020, but prior to that, this was a pretty solidly red county going all the way back to the 1940s. But this is not about the percentages. This is about the raw number of votes. So you can see in 2020, Biden got 1,040,000. But in 24, Harris went down to 980,000. Trump in 2020 was at 995,000. But in the last election, he went up. He's at 1,051,000. So if you combine Trump's gain with Harris's loss, that's a net raw vote gain of about 116,000 for Trump. That's not at all going to make the list of largest percentages, but this is where all the people live. Harris dropped off, Trump went up a little bit, and that comes out to a significant net gain for Trump. Let's go to number 9. We've got Alameda County, California. If you want a little refresher on where this county is located, it's going to be highlighted right here on this map. Now, this county also has a ton of population, over 1.6 million, and this county is also home to Oakland, which is going to be near San Francisco. When you think of this area, you might immediately think this is solid blue territory. But let's go to the demographic breakdown. Here, the white population is at 28%. Asian population has a plurality at 32%. Hispanic is at 23%. Black population is under 10%. Now, as far as the population growth goes, there's been a ton of it up until very recently. You can see from 2020 to 2023, it's declined at 3.6%. A lot of reasons are going to be behind that, but that is notably the only decline going back to 1860. So aside from race, we've also got income here. This is from back in 2011, but the median family income was $87,000. Now let's go up here and take a look at the election results. So it's still extremely blue. Harris won it with 74.5%. Trump was only at 21%. It's low for Trump, but it's also better than either of his two previous performances. But take a look at the raw vote totals. Biden was at 617,000. Harris didn't even clear 500K. That is a huge drop-off. Meanwhile, Trump really didn't change too much. He only went up about 4,400 between 20 and 24. That's a very small improvement, but a giant drop-off for Harris. And that puts this county at about 122,000 vote shift in favor of Trump, and that's good for number 9. For number 8, we've got to go to the opposite end of the country. We're going to go to New York, and we're going to hit up one of the boroughs of New York City. We've got the Bronx. Now, this is even more notable because this is also one of the places that had the biggest shifts in terms of percentage. We'll come to that in just a second. But if you want a little bit of background about the Bronx, of course, you could take a look at that here. But let's go down and take a look at the demographics. Here, the non-Hispanic white population is only at 9%. Black population is at 34%. Hispanic is at 56%. And the population here is over 1.47 million. And you can see that's still been increasing over the past few decades. And it talks a little bit about housing here. The median value of one unit is $371,800. Now let's see how all that factors into the election results. We've got to go way down here, and we've got Trump getting about 27%, but Harris won it in a landslide, 71.9%. The problem for Harris is that is way lower than Biden. He was over 83%. So Trump here with the best percentage for a Republican since 1984. That was when it was almost 33%. Now take a look at the raw votes here. Biden, 355,000. Harris down to 261. Trump at only 67,000, but then he bumped it up to about 98,000. So it's another huge decline for Harris and a bit of a gain for Trump. So this again illustrates that Trump did make significant gains in deep blue areas, including large Hispanic populations. Let's go to number 7. For this, we're going to go to Texas, but it's not going to be a sparsely populated county on the border. This is going to be Harris County, home of Houston, and it might have Kamala's last name, but it did not move towards her in this election. And the population here is 4.7 million. So let's dive into the demographics. White population here, 27.7, Black 18.7, Asian 7.3, Hispanic 43%. And you can see this county here has sustained some significant population growth. It's gone up double digits every decade, going all the way back to 1860. So what happened in the election? Well, now it's 5 straight elections. This county has gone blue. Before that, it was red for decades, but it's not a landslide. Harris won it with just under 52%, Trump at 46.4. But take a look at the vote change. Last time it was 918,000 for Biden. This time Harris sank down to 808. Meanwhile, Trump was at 700,000. This time he improved that just a little bit, up to 722,000. So again, Trump on his own, not a massive gain. But combined with Harris's losses, it's another major shift toward Trump. Let's go to number 6, and we've got to go back to New York. Here's Kings County, and this is going to be in the vicinity of the Bronx, which we just took a look at. And the population here is stated to be 2.7 million. Again, we can glance here at the demographics. White population is low, but not as low as the Bronx. It's at 37.6. Non-Hispanic, just a little bit lower than that. The Black population is just under 27. Hispanic is at about 19, and Asian is at 13.6. So a clear mix in terms of ethnicity. And the population over recent decades has gone up, but not as dramatically as it has more than a century ago. So again, we want to see how that factors into the election results. So down here, Harris won it very, very easily. 70% of the vote, Trump over 27. But again, that's the best performance for a Republican in decades. And the raw vote total is Harris went down more than 100,000 votes over Biden compared to 2020. She's at 601. Meanwhile, Trump went up over 30,000. That puts him at just under 234,000. So once you combine that, that's just a little bit more of a net gain over Harris County. Now we've got the top 5. We've got to go to a new state. We've got Broward County, Florida. Now this is generally known as a blue county. It's located just north of Miami. It's right here in the southeastern part of the state. The population of this county is over 1.9 million. Let's see the demographics. And this is almost an even split. White and Hispanic population is at about a third. Black population just a little bit less than that. Asian population here is at 3.8. And the population here looks like it's slowed just a little bit. Less than a 1% gain since 2020. And we've also got the median household income here. It's at 67,900. So let's see what happened in the election. Well, it did decisively still go to Harris. She got 57.8, Trump at 40.9. It's also, again, the best performance for the Republicans in a while since 1988. And take a look at what Harris did compared to Biden. She went from 618,000 down to 507. Trump, meanwhile, went from 333 up to almost 359. So the pattern is the same. Where people live, Harris dropping off, Trump going up a little bit. Let's go to number 4. This is again going to be in New York City. This is Queens County. So this is going to be similar to what we already took a look at, but the population here is over 2.4 million. So that takes us to the demographic breakdown. And here we've got one of the most perfectly even splits. White non-Hispanic, 22.8. Black, 16.8. Hispanic 27.8, and Asian 27.5. It's also important to note that 47.5% of residents in 2018 were foreign born, and the median household income was 62,000. So with that said, let's see what happened in 2024. Again, Harris won it very comfortably, 61%, Trump at 37. But take a look at the vote totals. Biden got 569,000. Harris way down from there, just barely more than what John Kerry got in 2004. Trump, on the other hand, went from 212,000 all the way up to 264,000. So that is a net gain of over 183,000 for Trump. Let's go to number 3. This is going to be back in Florida. It's going to be Miami-Dade County. This one is probably not too much of a shock. It's seen a lot of rightward movement over the last few elections. And the population here is 2.7 million. So again, there's a ton of people here, just like every one of these other counties. So we can go down here and take a look at the demographics. Here, non-Hispanic white is low. It's at 13.4. Hispanic is at about 69%. Black is at 14. The median household income here is over 64,000, and the population overall has just barely started to tick down over the last few years. But what does that mean in terms of the election? Well, if we go down here, we can see that Trump actually flipped and won this county for the first time since H.W. Bush won it in 1988. And he didn't just barely win it, he got 55.2%. That is a massive shift in a very short period of time. So in 2020, Biden got 617,000. Harris went all the way down to 480,000. Trump in 2016 went from 334,000 up to 532,000, all the way up to 605,000 in 24. This might be the best county in the country that illustrates whatever Trump is selling, these voters are buying, and his brand has massive appeal here. So that's about a net 210 vote gain for Trump. But we've got two counties that did even more than that. For the next county, we've got to go to a different state. It's going to be in the Midwest. It's Cook County, home of Chicago. So if you're unfamiliar, that's in the northeastern part of the state right down here. And it says more than 40% of all residents of the state live in this county, and the population is over 5.2 million. And of course, like all these other counties, everybody knows these are very dark blue. But let's glance here at the demographics. We've got a white population at over 40%, black at 22.5%, Asian is under 8%, and Hispanic is at 26%. Now, there's been a lot of population decline in Chicago and Illinois, and you can see in recent decades, there's been very little or actually negative population growth here. Since 2020, it's declined 3.6%, so that's something else to keep in mind as we go down here and take a look at the results. So overall, it's an easy layup here for Harris. She won the county by more than 40 points, but the problem is she dipped down here under 70. She's at 69.6, Trump is at 28.1. And take a look at these raw vote totals. Biden was at 1,725,000. Harris went down to 1,447,000. Trump, meanwhile, went from 558,000 up to 583,000. So not a dramatic increase for Trump like we saw in Miami-Dade, but Harris lost a ton of voters compared to Biden. The overall percentage is not dramatic in favor of Trump, but similar to Maricopa County, given a large percentage of the population lives in this county. Even just a 4 or 5% shift could be dramatic, and in this case it was. So the net gain here for Trump was over 303,000, but one county outdid all these other 9. We've got to go back to California for number 1. This is Los Angeles County, and the population here is 9.66 million. And it notes that this population is greater than 40 individual states. So as I just said, even a 1% shift here is going to be a lot of raw votes. But first we've got to glance at the demographics. Here the white population is at 25.6, black 7.6, Asian 14.7, and Hispanic is at about 48. So again, like with all these other counties, consider the median household income, consider the population that is foreign born. And as we go down to the election results, it's another easy win for Harris, 64.8, Trump at under 32%. But take a look at the decline here for Harris. Biden actually cracked 3 million. Harris went all the way down to just over 2.4 million. Trump, on the other hand, went up over 44,000 votes compared to 2020. So just looking at the Trump side is not a big bombshell. But when you combine that with the Harris side, the net gain in this county was 656,000 for Trump and the Republicans. And that is by far the most out of every county. And it's actually more than double of Cook County, which was number 2. And that's also a big reason Trump was able to win the national popular vote. So if we go back here to the map of the counties, we can wrap it up. The ones in New York here are going to be a little bit hard to see, but the rest are actually pretty scattered all over the country. And even though these are not the biggest percentage gains, this is where all the people live. So it's far more significant if these counties just move a few percentage points compared to a low population county moving 20% or more. And Trump only won 2 of these counties, that's Maricopa and Miami-Dade. But overall, he had a decisive improvement in all the rest. And these results might say a little bit more about Harris than it does about Trump. The enthusiasm just wasn't there for her as she declined significantly compared to Biden. So it's going to be some combination of Harris being a weak candidate where she needed to be strong, and Trump improving with the demographics that he needed to in areas that are historically deep blue. So even if you thought Trump was maxed out in some of these red counties, he went into unfriendly territory and he made additional gains. And if you compare these counties to the ones in the biggest percentage gains, most of those counties were along the border, especially in Texas along the Rio Grande Valley. The counties in today's video can't compete with those giant percentages, but these gains are going to be arguably much more significant. So maybe Harris declined more because turnout was so high in 2020 due to the pandemic. Maybe Harris is a uniquely weak candidate. Maybe Trump is a uniquely strong candidate. Maybe enough of the pressing issues did favor favor the party that was out of power. There's a whole lot of different factors here. It's always going to be complex. It'll be interesting to see if there's some sort of additional realignment in the next election. But for now, these are the 10 biggest raw net county vote gains for Trump and the Republicans in the last election. So let me know in the comments. What do you think about all these counties? Does any one of them surprise you more than the others? How much do you think the racial demographics or the income is a factor? And are these trends going to continue at all in the next election if it's not Trump and Harris on the ballot? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.